And just to let everybody know, we'll probably be starting at 2:01. You know, no party is fun until it starts late. So we'll be starting this at 2:01. And if we feel lucky, we might start at 2:02. So it depends. But no, we should be starting very soon. Roland, this is when I wish we had music. I was actually thinking about getting my DJ set out and just starting the music up before the webinar, just to get everybody in the mood.
Yeah, some nice elevator stuff would be good.
Really? You want me to do music? I was going to go a little bit harder, but okay.
A little Bad Company or something,
Yeah, exactly. Correct. Going to be doing that. Hey, there's
Bruce
Jim.
Springsteen.
Hey, Jim, how are you doing, buddy? And Maria, thank you so much for
Hi
joining.
there.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm new to these computer things. I had trouble getting in.
No problem. No problem. So we're going to be I'm actually just doing some just keeping it loose and friendly. So people will be joining. We'll probably be starting this around 2:02. 2:02. Great. Joanna, thank you for joining the webinar, and John, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, good morning.
You got it.
Thank you.
You got it, Joanna. Thank you for joining. And there we go. And just to let everybody know, so we're going to be doing this obviously live. Feel free to ask questions in the chat during the presentation. But at the end of the presentation, we will be doing some live Q&A. So I want you to really put our feet to the fire, ask some deep questions. We would love to give some deep answers. So I appreciate everybody just joining the webinar. Great. Welcome, Christian. I like to put people on the spot by saying, hey, how are you? You got it. And Rebecca. Perfect. Okay, well, it's 2:02 p.m. I know that everybody is probably very busy on a Thursday. It's also very close to Christmas. We wanted to kind of do this webinar to get people excited about where things are going. We've had some really, 2020 hasn't been my favorite year. I'm not sure about all of you, but it definitely hasn't been my favorite year. So I'm very, very excited about being able to present something that might inspire you for 2021. So today we have ElectrifAI and QLX presenting the webinar Reinventing ROI with Artificial Intelligence. I am joined by two compatriots from Electrify, Jim McGowan. And Jim McGowan leads Electrify's AI's efforts with cloud providers, where they partner to bring practical AI solutions to the Fortune 500, federal and state sectors. Jim has over 20 years experience putting highly innovative and disruptive technologies into the market at scale. And by the way, I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I am not reading copy, just to let you know. No, just kidding. But Jim has over 50 patents granted or pending, provided key testimony in a landmark software case, lobbied on behalf of the ticketing industry, and he is a sought-after advisor who has provided management, operations, and technology consulting to companies of all sizes. Jim has a doctorate, which we tried to get him to put Dr. Jim McGowan on here, but he refused. But he did serve as an adjunct professor for 6 years at Rutgers. So we're glad to have Jim on. Also joining me is Roland Simon. Roland has over 35 years of diverse international industry management experience, a substantial background in manufacturing, procurement, and supply chain. Roland possesses significant executive experience in operations, strategic planning, and execution. And Roland has a physics engineering bachelor's degree from Washington and Lee University and a master's degree in business from Durham Business School, Durham, England. And we do have some people that are listening in or on this webinar from the UK. So perfect setting for this. I'm very excited about this topic because I think when you bring up anything with artificial intelligence, there is this fear factor that comes up with it. So I'm very excited to talk about how do we use that fear, if you will, for around artificial intelligence to actually make it do things that can help us, especially on the acronym ROI, return on investment. So I want to talk about what is the secret sauce to artificial intelligence to get this thing started. And the secret sauce to this is emotional intelligence. Why is it that out of all the technologies we've ever implemented, I mean, think about all the things, microwaves, ATMs, all of those things, anything, big data, data science, business analytics, there's never been a fear factor to those. There's been a cost factor, there's been a skill factor, but there's never been such a fear factor with AI. And I think one of the biggest issues with artificial intelligence is that fear of letting go, being able to set up something that could possibly feel like it would impact your operations or impact your culture as a company. And from QLX Consulting Services, where I come from, I'm going to be your host. I should have said that in the beginning, GS Jackson. With QLX, we've been doing consulting around analytics since 1999. Our main office is in Miami, Florida, but we have offices all over, spread throughout. And of course, everyone's working remotely from India to Cebu, Philippines to Hong Kong, all the way over. We started this game around business analytics, focusing on 4 verticals: gaming, sports, health, and retail. Some of our customers are the NFL, NBA teams, Major League Soccer, some of the cruise lines, and I would say a majority of the casinos that are out there, not just in Vegas, but the ones that are throughout the United States and also in Macau and Asia Pacific. Now, we started doing most of the general technology implementations using SaaS. That's kind of where I came from. I worked for SaaS for about a decade, both in South Africa, in Hong Kong, in Germany, and then doing some work in Brazil and the Philippines, and then coming back to the States. And then we started working with Salesforce and doing Snowflake data warehousing and data lake. So pure technology kind of a toolkit type of implementations. Then we started to get into how do we change the future. So we built out a product called TrialFire. It does the A/B testing around being versus artificial intelligence algorithms. Which algorithm works the best? And that's kind of got us really excited about, well, let's go all in. So in 2019, we went all in on artificial intelligence. We started partnering with a company called Junction AI to do creative AI, which means using images, video, written copy, being able to predict which targets to market to based on the videos that you're putting out, and working with agencies and marketing agencies. We also were asked by Esquire Singapore and to create a magazine or to write the April 2019 issue, half of it human, half of it by robot. We didn't even know if we could do that, but we created a technology called AI Writer. We were able to do that. Actually, if you see behind me, I have it framed up on my wall in the back, the Esquire Singapore April 2019 issue, and we won the Berlin Native Advertising Award for best use of printed materials. But the thing that we were missing was this core operational piece. How do we use AI to spotlight those issues that seem hard to find? And that's where ElectrifAI came in, talking about procurement, contract automation. And we're really, really excited about this partnership with ElectrifAI. And the reason being is when you talk about artificial intelligence requires emotional intelligence, there's 3 rules that we abide by from a QLX consulting purpose. Creativity, not repetition. Efficient, not ineffective. Reassure, not replace. The goal here is to kind of get rid of that fear of using AI and really focus it. We want to get rid of, I have a saying, if it repeats, kill it. The goal is to try to automate as much things that are taking up your time around repetition the things that really doesn't need an emotional IQ to be able to figure out if it can work or not. You just need things to work. So, and start focusing your company towards creativity. Start being more human. Maybe that's the fear of artificial intelligence, that it makes us more human. We have to be more human being now that we're using AI. And the other thing too is rule number 2 is efficient, not ineffective. We've been implementing and putting in technology after technology for decades now. We don't want to rip and replace. The goal here is, can we use what you have and make it more efficient? Make sure that everything is kind of hitting on all cylinders, not ineffective. And then the last thing is, the goal is not to get rid of your staff, but to reassure. This should be an early warning system using AI to be able to find negatives, be able to spotlight problems, and be able to make sure that you're hitting your service level agreements. And with all of that being said, showing this entire architecture, I'm really, really excited to bring ElectrifAI to the webinar. So Jim, it is all yours. Make sure I haven't muted
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much, Gary. I make sure not to repeat myself so you don't have to kill me. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about who ElectrifAI is, what we do, where we bring value to people, and where we see the world now, where we see it go. And I give a little background too on artificial intelligence along the way and machine learning. So just to demystify it a bit and kind of help you understand when you talk to people and they say, hey, my system uses artificial intelligence, what that really may mean for you. And so in terms of who ElectrifAI is, we are, I don't know if it makes sense to go to the next slide here, Gary.
Gotcha.
Great.
Sorry about that.
We're a 16-year-old startup. We are rebooting ourselves from a consultancy into a product organization from about 2 years ago, and we are the machine learning model factory for the world. We can build machine learning we do it in many different verticals for many different use cases. We focus on Fortune 500 companies all the way down to the smallest. We build solutions that are reusing the knowledge we've had and sometimes even reusing a lot of the work we've done, so that we're starting at 80% done or 100% done with a project when we from the initial onset, so we can deliver value in a very short period of time, very efficiently, and targeted at real business solutions, not just piece parts to a problem. So if we're looking at churn in telecom, we're telling you who's likely to churn, when it's likely to happen, and what you can actually do to prevent it, as opposed to just saying there's a 10% chance this person will churn, and then you have to figure out how to act on your own. So, and we can go to the next one. So let me give just a little overview of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So all undoubtedly heard a lot of the hype. The way to think of artificial intelligence, it's anything that it seems like we needed a person to do, but now we can get a computer to do. Over time, it's things that may have seemed magical before, like you could teach a computer how to play chess. Well, that was AI, but nowadays it's losing its status as not really maybe even AI, it's just programming. So when you're thinking about AI, think of it as, if I was to take an expert, so Roland will be speaking, he was a chief procurement officer, and if I wanted to write software about procurement, I'd interview him and I'd try to figure out how did he do his job, and then I'd write a set of rules where I'd try to replicate, so that you could have Roland in a box and you could then ask it questions and have it give opinions, right? So I could actually use that software to say I'm replicating an expert. The problem with this approach is, in many cases, experts don't really know how they know something. They've learned it from experience. They don't have a set of rules in their head that they follow to say, oh, all right, you've asked me, do I think the price of oil is going to go up? Well, first I consider this, and then I consider this, and then I look at this. They don't explicitly know that. What's happened is they've learned from experience. They've learned from years and years of looking at data. If you want to get a really good expert, you want to have someone who's had a lot of experiences and looked at a lot of data in their lifetime. And it's often right when they make a statement. That's what machine learning does. Machine learning is when I collect a whole bunch of historical data and I make sure I have all the experiences that you'd want to cover, right? If I talk to a procurement expert and all he's ever done is sell sneakers, he might not know a whole lot about the rest of the world and flanges and everything else that may affect your business. So you want someone with a lot of different experience, you want a lot of different data. You want to make sure there's a balance to that data so nothing's overrepresented and underrepresented. And then you want to have an algorithm that could go through and say, based on that data, what do you learn for novel situations? Right? So when you ask it questions, what you're really saying is, well, based on the data, right? And that's how you're trained to think in business too. Keep being data driven. Machine learning is the ultimate data driven exercise. You're taking large amounts of things that have happened in the past, and you're saying, okay, based on that, moving forward, this is what we believe is going to happen. And then you get the feedback loop of continuing to improve that as it gains more experience. Make a prediction, see if it was right or wrong, and go again. So machine learning is really driving the business by data in its ultimate form. Now, when you hear about deep learning, that's actually just a type of machine learning. That is, the way to think of that is, if you're going to build a small machine learning, it's like building a small house. And they might be simple enough, you put a frame up and you have a house. But now if I'm going to build a skyscraper, it's much more complicated. The only difference is it's a much larger house, but now I have to do a lot more work in terms of constructing it, scaffolding and all these other structures in order to be able to stand up something that large. That's what deep learning is. Deep learning is just a very large machine learning model. So in order to actually tune it and get it working and actually have it correctly understand that data takes a lot more effort and a lot more skill. But if you're just buying machine learning, if you're just buying something that's a product that uses machine learning under the hood, it really doesn't matter to you if it uses deep learning or not. What matters is its performance in the real world and what it actually can accomplish for you. So when you hear people using, hey, I use AI in my product, that could be as simple as having a couple of rules that say, when it's raining outside, the price of oil might go up. Okay, it's a rule, and you could have 10 of them, 20 of them. You're correct in saying you use artificial intelligence. But to say you're using machine learning really means you had to have taken a large set of data and train the algorithms on how to understand that data. If you can hop to the next slide. Here at ElectrifAI, we have a whole host of situations that we've looked at where you have the domain expertise in an area and you learn the data. So one more point I'll make about AI and ML is in machine learning, you may think, well, if I have the data, why do I need the expert anymore? I can just teach it to understand the data. Well, the expert's still very, very necessary. If someone's not using the expert still, they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. You need to really understand how that data works, and your intuitions and your knowledge of that industry play into how you construct the model, how you construct the data, how you reorganize and derive features from the data. That's all very critical. If you don't have that expertise, the machine's not going to learn it for you. What the machine's going to learn is when you as an expert may have been right or wrong, and it will be driven by the data and not by maybe your own personal experience. It will have much more experience, but it's not like I can just take an algorithm and throw random data at it and have it understand. You have to have that domain expertise to pull through. If you could flip to the next slide. We have domain experts in every area we build models, and we have people who have done deep engagements with partners and customers across the globe to really understand their issues around contract analysis, around banking of all different types, from revolving consumer credit to commercial loans, in telecommunications in terms of marketing, in terms of performance of networks and things like that. If you flip to the next slide. In many different industries, how do you get people into hotels? How do you get them on an airline? How do you get them on a cruise line? In healthcare, how do you deal with back office issues? How do you deal with some radiology issues? We, in every one of these cases, have the expert and the data, put them together with the expertise in building the model, and then we make that available. So you don't have to have all those things. You don't need the data scientists, the data engineers, or all those other things. We provide that solution for you. And I think the next one then is going to go, I can pass this over to Roland, who's going to talk about one of those specific solutions that we have around spend analytics. And Roland, you can take it from here.
Thanks, Jim. It's really good to be here today. Gary, you can go ahead and forward on to the next slide if you want. So I want to use a very specific example to illustrate a little bit machine learning and artificial intelligence and how we use that. We're talking about ROI today, return on investment. And so far, you've heard a lot of conversation around time, saving time, repetitive tasks, and so on and so forth. So just bear in mind, anywhere where we can use machine learning and artificial intelligence to speed something up, we're saving money. That's return on investment. So using our Spend AI product as an example, I'll share a few insights into where the procurement process opportunities for value-added application of these technologies make sense. At ElectrifAI, we take the perspective that our Spend AI product begins with the ingestion of data and concludes with a user experience that includes technology-driven insights derived from that data. So in other words, we're bringing in, imagine millions of rows, hundreds of columns of data, and we're processing that through our model to reduce the amount of time it would take a human being to do that. Once we have that data organized, we do something with it, okay? So in order to perform any form of analysis from a set of data, you have to initially organize and orient around a platform or a logic. We call that a schema. Without this, it'd only be representing random numbers with really not much of a relationship to too much. In the procurement world, our prized set of data is most commonly spend data derived from day-to-day transactions with those suppliers that provide us goods and services. These transactions take place around the world in different geographies across different business units and from location to location, and for different finished goods in our portfolios. As a result, the typical situation is represented by multiple databases, multiple types of data in lots of different formats. To begin to gain strategic insights in this data, it has to be cleansed. We have to cluster suppliers, we parent suppliers, we classify the categories that they produce or they sell or they deliver based on that spend data. Only at such a time that we have full transparency around what and how much we buy from whom can we begin to understand our competitive position within the markets that we participate. From the time that we ingest the data until the time that we have full visibility is what we call time to value. And what machine learning does, and in our product, we have a series of models. What it does for us, it enables us to dramatically compress the time that it takes to execute this process. So how do these technologies deliver value in the form of a return on investment? Well, the application of machine learning technology begins with the ETL process. We use automated scripts to extract, transform, and load client data from any ERP system or systems. Usually it's more than one. And thereafter, we use additional machine learning models to normalize that data, then cluster, then name and classify the vendor groups. And dealing with large volumes of data, often millions of rows, this process can take many months of man hours if done manually. And it used to be done this way. Way back in the day when I was still a procurement guy, if you wanted to cleanse your data, you sent it off to some faraway land where they put a small army of people to actually execute this process. No longer is that the case, and certainly not with our product. With machine learning capability at ElectrifAI, we shrink this time to value significantly beyond what is achievable through manual human processes. This therefore also represents dramatically improved return on investment. For most clients that are early in their data analysis journey, ROI is literally a matter of months. So Gary, I think we can move to the next slide. So once we have all the data organized, what types of insights are these technologies capable of delivering? Once the data is organized, the ML and AI are enabled to perform a significant role of identification of multitude of patterns across the comprehensive breadth of data. That's really important. You imagine I said millions of rows and hundreds of columns. The machine learning models, the AI models are much quicker at spotting specific patterns. Now, back to Jim's point of having an expert in the house, I'm the guy who tells the data scientist, what patterns am I looking for? Then we train the model to go look for those patterns, right? So there are pre-built models that visualize standard spend profiles as well as more advanced analyses that identify opportunities for supply-based consolidation or pricing harmonization across the entire footprint. There are very common strategic perspectives such as supplier portfolio mix, supplier geographic mix, spend concentration, and spend fragmentation that are easily drawn out across a comprehensive data set. The days of ignoring tail spend, which most procurement people recognize that term, are long behind us, because in the old days, it used to be too time consuming based on the potential returns. People would just leave it alone. In addition to standard strategic patterns, custom insights based on market dynamics or competitive conditions are also possible, including integration of third-party information. Next page, Gary. So let's talk about third-party information. So what types of third-party information can the technology provide in this type of scenario? Well, in the information age that we live, any information that's in the public realm is fair game, to be honest. As part of the automated insights provided by these technologies, scripts can be written to scrape all forms of public information sources to deliver relevant third-party data directly to the analysis and the end user. The days of being limited to basic Dun & Bradstreet financial information are also behind us. In the most powerful use case, we use this technology to scrape, organize, and report meaningful market data analysis directly to the fingertips of the user inside the Spend AI tool itself. This can be, say, for example, you custom construct a composite index where you want to provide a certain outlook of, let's say, for example, petrochemicals or resins. We can pull in data that reflects US consumer tendencies. We can pull in inflation, currency rate, exchange rate differences between euros and dollars. We can pull in all kinds of manufacturing data out of China. We consolidate that, we put that all into a single view, and it gives a very good indication of what direction things might be headed. This is all done in automated fashion, extremely powerful. So any form of insights can be constructed to serve a variety of business models. Dynamic cost models can be constructed, as well as material cost volatility metrics can be developed based on specific business cases. Ultimately, most things are possible. Next page, Gary. So just to give you a bit of a flavor, we have identified a number of third-party sources that are commonly referenced. You can see those here on this page. In addition to what you see here, there's a whole host of US and foreign governmental data that is available, such as the Energy Information Authority, such as Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and so on and so forth. So anything out there is available. Anything there we can pull together, we can customize depending on what somebody's business model is or what industry you're in. We can make it relevant for where you are and what you're doing. It's all about speed and time and the ability to access, organize, and analyze volumes of data that were previously overwhelming in size and complexity. And that is basically the story. We're talking about time is money. We're talking about compression of time through utilization of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And to get back to one of Gary's original points is this not to replace human beings. This technology is to enable human beings to focus their attention on that which is more strategic, on that which is more reliant upon their expertise. Let the machine do the repetition, let the machine point out to you where the patterns are, but then let the human being make the strategic decisions around those patterns. So Gary, I think with that, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to bring up is why we wanted to partner with ElectrifAI. We feel like ElectrifAI is kind of the Netflix, if you will, of machine learning. It's basically content libraries or machine learning libraries that we can kind of plug into. We have multiple data models around retail, gaming, sports, that type of thing. And so just to be able to plug in our data model to feed into their machine learning models, it just worked really, really well. So, and again, I'm not knocking I teach data science, I teach artificial intelligence. So programming from scratch, not a problem. We could definitely do that and you can spend some time doing it. But what I loved about this is just there's a lot of models that are already out there. They're being used by the open source community, and they've been retrofitted and made proprietary to work specifically for your issues. And that's why we love this combination of being able to use this. Now, so the next thing I would like to kind of put out there for anyone, if anyone's really interested in going through a demo, like a hands-on demo with this, please reach out to myself, Jim, or Roland, and we would love to schedule that up. We were going to try to do all of that here. We just felt like it might go too long, and we wanted it to be very specific to your needs. But with that being said, are there any questions? Feel free to challenge us on the stuff that we're putting out here. Any issues that you're facing and you would like to get a little clarification on? And no pressure to ask questions.
This is the part, Gary, where we forgot to plant a question with you so you could pretend to read it.
Yes, I forgot it. Yes.
Gary, I think there's a question up in the chat room, looks like, at least, or somebody put something up in there.
Oh, that was me, actually. That was me.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, that's...
Yeah, so what
were you going to ask us?
No, so one of the things that I wanted to make sure that was out there is how we're trying to, because I think one of the biggest concerns is where does this live? You know, on the machine learning piece, when we talk about these libraries, where can they live on premise? Can they live in the cloud? How do you set this up for customers to be able to use these machine learning models from ElectrifAI's perspective?
Great question. So our motto is bring the code to the data, because that solves a lot of problems. GDPR compliance issues with moving the data, not a problem if the code goes where the data is, things like that. So we can deploy on any one of the cloud providers. We can host it, and you can call it through an API, like machine learning as a service, or we can put it in your cloud account. We can put it on your premises. Every way you access it, then in those, it would be the same API. This is very simple to use. We also make it available through a lot of the platforms like AWS SageMaker, or through Google, or through Microsoft Azure. We are available in low-code platforms like ServiceNow and Pega, and we can be available on like RPA platforms like UiPath. So there's a whole host of different options. If you don't have a setup to run this type of thing, it really just needs a regular server. It's just a regular piece of software that doesn't need special handling or treatment. So if you're running, a virtual machine, we do that. We run them Docker containers if you're using Kubernetes. We actually do also sell a box that could run the whole thing for you. It's not really necessary. Off-the-shelf equipment, standard stuff always works.
Nice. There is one question from Steve. You mentioned scraping. So your platform will scan and scrape vendor sites, for example, to be able to bring that third-party data in. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, that was a quick answer.
As long as it's public and legal.
Right. Yes.
We do that for you, right? So we go and do that scraping and maintain it, so you don't have to worry about the website changes its format a little bit and things don't work. We handle all of that. We scrape that data and put it into the platform for you.
Yeah, typically with the spend product or the contract product, we would there's a part of our process where we sit with the client and look at their industry, what their model is, what their business model is, and what's of interest to them, and we can pull it in, in a customized fashion. We do have some insights that we're now making that are sort of industry specific. I mentioned petrochemicals. We'll do something for coatings. We'll do something for packaging, but we'll have some very specific segment or industry segment type of third-party data that we pull together.
One thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm seeing after the COVID and the pandemic is, raging, a lot of companies are looking to this for early warning systems, because right now it takes weeks or months to actually implement something like this. With this, they can plug it in, and within a couple of weeks, up to a month or so, they can start getting early warning systems about their spend, around their procurement, around the contracts that they're basically looking at. Are you seeing the same type of trending with your customers and some of the other partners that you're working with?
Yeah, I think there's a huge industry or huge interest out in the marketplace for being able to identify leading indicators, and that's what we try to focus on. It's hard to look, it's hard to predict a black swan event, to be honest with you. Most of the times in my career where we've been hit with something, for example, something like Hurricane Harvey, at the time I was in the petrochemical industry, and literally the streets of Houston were so flooded you couldn't move a truck. In those types of events, what's extremely important to you is the quality of your supplier relationships. So using the tools and the information and leading indicators to make sure you're positioned right with the right people, that's where the key is.
Right. Yeah.
Make
go
a
ahead,
point,
Jim.
Gary, there too you made the point on a handful of weeks, just in terms of we don't require that you pick up your data and move it somewhere else. There's no lift and shift. There's no major installation. You have to change things. What we basically take is the equivalent of like a backup tape of your data. Just data dump of some of your systems across multiple systems, whatever it is. Then we take it over and clean it, link it together, organize all of it, and automate all that and churn it back to you in a single pane of glass. And it's just a couple of weeks to get onboarded, right? It's maybe 6 weeks or so. It's particularly useful in that if you look at, you could get a consultant in who's going to give you a plan over the next 6 weeks for what you're going to have to do for the next 18 months to move to a new data system to get an analysis. That's not us. You got it in 4 systems, 6 systems, leave them there. Also means it's great for mergers, because if you're merging a company, you've got to get your target for Wall Street, and you've got to get your systems integrated. And if you wait for that system integration to happen, it's going to be a long time before you can get your hands on that spend data. We can get you that spend data on day one. Look at this, compare. I have 2 different contracts with 2 different vendors. with the same vendor from the two different companies, and then I can negotiate that and get leverage right away.
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah. And one thing
got a
that
question.
go ahead. There was a question.
Yeah. So how do you guys approach, because honestly, that's what got my attention when I got the invite for this webinar. How do you guys approach the ROI on this type of projects? And what I mean by that is, from the procurement standpoint, this is probably very hard to justify when companies, or for companies to invest in this type of solutions, which I, by the way, I totally believe in this type of solutions. But it's hard when you go back to your executives and try to sell the not just the idea, but the ROI for these projects, because usually these things are seen more a spend as opposed to an investment. And most likely when there's any benefits are seen usually as soft savings and not as hard savings. And that, of course, from the procurement standpoint, is always a challenge. So how do you guys approach the ROI? Because that's, like I said, that's what really caught my attention when I got this invite.
Great
Yeah,
question.
so I think,
Go ahead.
yeah, it's a great question. It's a really good one. I would say there's a couple of points to pay attention to. First of all, the ROI will depend to some degree what level of maturity is the organization, how much visibility, how much spend visibility you have today. You know, how mature is the organization? If it's a relatively young organization, ROI is relatively quick, within weeks actually, or just a couple months. But I would say, because of the manner in which we employ the machine learning and the AI in our process, that whole process that Jim just explained, the light touch that we use, the minimal number of human bodies that we engage, our cost to implement actually is typically less expensive than you would think, and certainly more competitive than other products that are out there in the market that you might be familiar with. And we pride ourselves in not being a consultancy. We deliver tools to clients and to partners that they can use off the shelf. So this, all in all, you look at the total cost of ownership, it will probably surprise you not to be as expensive as you think, and the delivery or the return on that investment significantly faster than you would probably also imagine. And the reason for that is because of the level of automation that we use and how fast we turn things around versus other players. I did some consultancy work before I started with ElectrifAI, and I recently spoke to one of the guys I was working with there, implementing a full suite of procurement analysis or spend analysis tools with a competitor is going to take them 18 months. 18 months, that's outrageously expensive. You think about the bodies and seats and the man hours that are employed to do that. We are significantly lighter touch than that. Jim, is there anything you would add to that? Am I forgetting something?
Yeah, just that every time we deploy this, people are shocked to find out where they're spending money. And even if they've had an analytics solution, particularly if they're across multiple systems, but even in a single system, they're shocked to find out, because you can slice and dice in every way. But we don't just slice and dice. We don't just give you a tool and say, great, here's the slice and dice, go find the needles in a haystack. We actually give very specific recommendations, or queued up for you. You basically start the month with, here's a bunch of things that smell funny in your spending.
So what you're saying is that the ROI comes from the visibility that you gain by implementing machine learning into the spend analysis? Exactly.
You're going to see things that I guarantee it happens 100% of the time. You're going to see things that will shock you. We sometimes call it the 4 stages of grief, right? Because people go and deny all that the data can't be right, and they check the source system and realize, yes, that is what you're spending. And then eventually they come to acceptance and say, we have to change either organizational behavior or we have to renegotiate with vendors. And that's where having the contracts available and being able to automatically see who you can terminate for convenience and things like that comes invaluable. So it really is a way of, on day one, someone sitting down using it and getting straight to, here's where I'm spending money that I could actually save right now. And then, of course, strategically, as you build over the months of using it, you really get that to a nice plateau of having your spend at really a strategic level of dealing with vendors, as opposed to maverick spend, other things that are going on where you're just not really capturing that full value. We have stories of people having literally over 100, even several thousand company names so that you're actually dealing with the same company. We get all that harmonized into one, and you realize, wow, this is, I have great leverage over this person. I thought I had a whole bunch of mom and pop shops. So you'd be shocked to find out. It's worth a POC to take a look and to see, but this is not what I thought I was spending.
And from my perspective, from being a consultant services is working with them and using their tools, one of the things that we were trying to move away from is just the billing per hour and trying to sit on your site for as long as possible. We just got tired of that. It wasn't helping anyone. What we liked about this one is, what Jim was talking about earlier about you can imagine what the cost would be. Well, I'm imagining paying $1 for a service like this, but yet being able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars back immediately. So at the end of it, showing the money that you're making for them, showing the revenue or showing that the savings. And that was something we wanted to work towards, is that we get paid for the money we save you. We don't want it all, obviously. It'd be nice, but the goal is, instead of just saying, hey, what did you do for 6 weeks or 18 months to implement? Instead, you're like, you just saved us this month. We send you the bill that you've saved. You've just saved, not faked. You go through the information. You look through the contracts that we saved you 10,000 here, 20,000 there. We would like our small percentage of that, because we're saving it for you, and you can use that money to reinvest in your company and be more creative. So I'm talking from the partner that actually implements this. That was kind of our angle from a return on investment. One more thing to say about return on investment. You do have data scientists, or you have developers and you have teams that are working their butts off to try to create solutions. What we're trying to do here is, I've seen so many, and I teach so many, that basically they're just kind of stuck trying to create the widget. And then they get kind of lost in the weeds. The goal here is, we already have the widget, just plug it up. Plug up the fields, and then you can choose. They already have the visualization, or you can use your own visualization, the tool that you have, and then let's move on to something cooler. So that's kind of your actually return on investment on the employees that you have. Allow them, because attrition is also a problem. Keeping these people busy and making sure that they show that they have value. So that's kind of my take on it from a partner perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And we have one more question from Jawin. What if there's a data field that customer wants to be included in your algorithm? Is it available? I guess talking about from a customization perspective that doesn't fit the model that you already have, or they want to go in a different way. What is your take on that, Roland and Jim?
Yeah, one of our differentiators is the level of configurability that we have in our tool. Our tool is extremely configurable, and so as long as the data exists in the database, we can present the data. We can present the data points. We can draw the relationships between the data points. We can't create data that doesn't exist, but we can configure to just about any client or customer request with regards to specific data points.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. to add to that, we can carry the data through, so you can have that in your slice and dice as another way to look at it, and we can also then, if there's something other strategic or something that you think is influencing, we can customize things to put that into the way we clean the data or the machine learning there. So that's all very open. Our view of the world is to really keep this open and flexible, because no two companies have the same view of spend and categorization and things like that. So flexibility, configurability are really key for us. So yeah, exactly. That's exactly the type of thing we can do.
Well, that's if there's any other questions, feel free to ask them. The closing statement I would like to make with this, but before I pass it back to Jim or Roland, if you have any closing statements, is think of this, my little joke that I always make is R2-D2 and C-3PO never tried to become a Jedi in Star Wars. They were there to reassure, reassess, and to complement. And that's really what I feel that ElectrifAI is doing with this, is offering these tools to kind of plug into your current systems, not to take over, not to get rid of, to cut your operations in half, but to save you money and also complement. So that's the thing that I loved about partnering with ElectrifAI. Jim, Roland, did you have any parting words before we close this down?
No, I think the question.
Go ahead. Say again. I think we're losing you a little bit, Jim.
Looks like Roland paused.
We're relevant. I think. I think just to reiterate again, we're extremely fast to value. We are extremely agile with regards to different types of data. different data sources that we work with. That's also enabled through ML and AI. And then we're extremely configurable at the user end to provide people with those tools that they actually are looking for, the things that make sense for them in their business. So
Yes.
that's our position. That's where we like to be.
Perfect. Roland?
I'd like to throw a big blanket around too to say we do a lot more than just spend analytics. So if you're looking at invoice scanning and processing, fraud on top of the invoices, and anything you could imagine related to document handling, all these other cases, there's many, many other things. I encourage you to check our website. We keep just a huge growing list of use cases that we've worked on, battle tested, proven in the field, machine learning models.
Yes, and don't trust anything that we're saying. We want to demo this to you. So if you got some case studies or something that we can actually play around with, we'd love to be able to do a live demo with the hands-on. So please feel free to reach out to us. Our details are there, and I cannot thank all of you enough for being able to take Thursday afternoon or Thursday morning for you if you're on the West Coast to be with us. Jim, Roland, thank you so much, and I appreciate everybody joining on the call.
Thank you.
Thanks,
It's a pleasure.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.